Hi, I'm Joe Mullings, and welcome to The Other Side. This is our very first episode on exploring this coronavirus situation and how it's hitting the world and obviously our medical device community. I'm excited and proud to be the gateway here as best possible to all the community, all the medical device companies, and especially the people and patients. First guest on the show is very appropriate, Brian Johnson, a dear friend and the president of MassMEDIC. Up in Massachusetts. So, Brian, welcome aboard.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks for having me. I'm honored to be your first guest. I wish we were talking about something else, though.
Yeah, and so, Brian, would you share with the world what MassMEDIC does and what we stand for and the influence we have in the industry?
Absolutely. MassMEDIC, we're the trade association for the medical device, medical technology manufacturers of Massachusetts and New England. So we represent the about 300 med tech companies and everything from advocacy to community building to helping startups accelerate. And also, in times of crisis like this, helping them navigate an ever-changing landscape in terms of new orders and things like that are coming from the state.
Yeah, and Massachusetts is the largest exporter in the USA of medical devices. I believe 1 out of 4 products that come out of that state are directly related to the medical device industry.
That's correct, yes. Medical devices are our chief export. It's a critical bedrock industry for this Commonwealth. More than 25,000 people are employed here directly by the med tech industry, and countless others rely on the med tech industry for their livelihood in terms of service providers, contract manufacturers, regulatory consultants, et cetera. It's a critical industry along with biotech and biopharma here in the state that make up our massive life science cluster.
Yeah, and medical devices north of $6 billion, and that's with a B, exports out of that state. So you had pointed out you've got some very large employers there that at this point it sounds like everybody's working from home.
Yeah, Joe. I mean, I think you have to think of it in 2 steps, right? Executives, white collar folks, those folks are all working from home. But here's the reality: we still have to get workers onto the manufacturing floor because we're still in this fight. And that's the thing is we're running skeleton crews and clean rooms all over the state here, trying to make sure that the technology that needs to get to the patient's bedside is getting there. And, that is also part of the sort of tricky landscape we're navigating right now with government as well. We have to make sure that they understand that these workers are essential and they need to get to where they're going. We have several companies directly engaged in the fight against COVID-19, and it's amazing to see what they're doing every day. It's quite a time to be in this industry.
You got Thermo Fisher up there, who's right in the middle of everything, right? We've got Fresenius, and the impact it's having. I mean, this is a disease. Everybody's thinking about the pulmonary function that it attacks, but it really hits the kidneys as well as the heart, and we'll talk about that in COVID-19 organs later. But you've got some major muscle that's right on the front line, as you point out.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, obviously Thermo Fisher with their tests. Hologic also is in that fight with their diagnostics unit. All of that is out of California. Instrument labs, blood gas analyzers. There's no shortage of companies involved. Plus, when patients crash, we have a whole host of resuscitation, cardiac, endoscopy, anything sort of related to getting those breathing ways clear and keeping those hearts beating. I mean, it's all critical. It's pretty awe-inspiring, frankly. I think how many companies are involved.
Yeah, and you and I have been at this industry for almost 3 decades now, and it's been the forefront of our lives. And suddenly now I think the world is going to have thrust upon it the importance of this medical device, life sciences, biotech ecosystem that supports really the infrastructure of the world.
Yeah, I mean, did you ever think about when the world would stand still that it would be because of a healthcare crisis? I mean, we all fought terrorism or World War. I don't know if we ever thought the world would stop because of a healthcare crisis. And you hit the nail on the head. I mean, if we think about this as a world war, the med tech companies, the biotechs, the biopharmas, I mean, those are our armies. And, it's awe-inspiring to think about. It's humbling, and it's kind of it's an unprecedented moment. So I'm proud to be in the fight where I can. Just trying to help keep things easier for these guys.
Now, you talk about being in the fight, and you are the tip of the spear up there. You and I sit on the board of MassMEDIC, and it's a very powerful organization, influential down in Washington and certainly in the state of Massachusetts. Can you share with us what's going on right now in Mass in regards
Yeah.
to what you're able to in the public domain?
So we have about 200 confirmed cases of COVID-19, but it seems apparent that we're entering the community spread portion of this. We are all under. Uh, just this weekend, the governor issued a ban on all gatherings over, I think it was 25 people. I think we're slowly moving into even more restrictive areas, although, nothing has been said yet. All bars and restaurants are being told to serve takeout. The cities are pretty much abandoned. People may be taking a walk around here and there, but I think more concerning at this point is the hospitals and the safety of healthcare workers. It's quite apparent that we're going to end up in a bit of a supply crunch here. We're already seeing cases at the Brigham and at Partners. The state is coordinating the response as best as they can, but it's a changing situation every day. And it requires a full participation from all players here. What we have to do is keep healthcare workers safe. And I think that's paramount right now. That and keeping people off the streets and trying to slow the spread of this.
Yeah. And I also noticed, I think it was on Saturday or Sunday, that Massachusetts was one of the first states to fully support telehealth on doctor visits, and
Yes.
fully reimbursable. And I think that's a major move in allowing people also some comfort and potential diagnosis.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would recommend a couple local companies here. Bowie Health has a great symptom tracker. So if you're like me and you get a little cold and maybe your imagination runs wild because you spend too much time working in healthcare, you can check your symptoms and then they'll give you a recommendation. It's all free. American Well, which is now Amwell, is a telehealth play. They're local here to Boston. And then there's a startup here that I like called Nurse 11, which you can SMS, text a nurse, just questions. I think it's really important to use these resources. We need to take stress off the healthcare system. So, look, you probably have a cold. It's cold and flu season, and or you're nervous, and I think people need the reassurance. So I think this is telemedicine's moment, I think it's great that we have a strength up here regionally. I'd like to make sure that everybody is using those as well.
You and I have talked about this over the years about the empowerment of the mobile phone and how it really is the first line of defense, and how it becomes an onboard tool both from a diagnostic and a therapeutic perspective. And we're seeing it now forced into action appropriately in regards to, again, potentially diagnosing and then also giving guidance. And maybe even peace of mind to navigating that until you can get it triaged or you can show up to get a full test and or therapy.
Yeah.
So I don't think this was the path you and I wanted to see, but we knew it was the one that was inevitable.
Yeah, for a lot of technologies, there's always a galvanizing moment, and I think this is it for digital health for sure. It is critical, Joe, that we keep the stress off the healthcare system. We need the patients who need care the most to be there. So that's where this has become essential. And I think it's, if we take a larger perspective, right, which I think is important because we will get through this moment. As daunting as it seems, and it's pretty daunting. I have a 12-year-old and a 7-year-old, and they're not in school right now. And, we're trying to figure out how to keep them educated during a hiatus that could be anywhere from 2 to 6 weeks. But we have to sort of think long term. What is this crisis teaching us about technology? And I think right now we are seeing the really importance of digital health. And I think it comes at an important time. Digital health, what was companies were raising a lot of money, but their investors weren't seeing a ton of exits. So and I think the business model was still a little bit behind. So this is going to be the trial by fire for their business model. It's going to be the test, the sort of the utility test case for them, and it's important that we have this tool out there. I think people just need to use it, frankly, and I'm starting to use them as well, and I think it's pretty incredible that you can call a doctor now on Zoom and talk to them and basically just pay a flat fee. I mean, that is exactly what we need at this moment.
Yeah. And the world has lived through a number of pandemics, and we will come out the other side, and we don't know what that quite looks like yet. But it's never lived through a pandemic as a connected world, and that connectivity in this world is part of what causes pandemics, right? Because we're able to move so effortlessly amongst each other. And if we're spreading something bad, it's not good. But if we're spreading something good, it's good. And that spread of data, the sharing of data, the early prediction, and the predictive analytics that are in place, I think you hit it right on the head, Bri, is we needed a test case. Unfortunately, it is in the middle of these crises that people can sort of focus on what this means moving forward. Now we could aim and give a reason why these investments are important, give a reason why these technologies are important, rather than people calling it just a folly looking for a solution. We have the need right now. So this digital age is upon us and forced upon us like most crises. It will come out the other side with some real evidence based on why this is important.
Yeah, I also think if you look beyond the current moment and what you see, the big lesson here is we need robotics in healthcare now, faster. I mean, we have to take the human equation out of healthcare where applicable. And I think where you're seeing a giant glaring need now is A, we need more hospitals. And B, we need more of those hospitals to have automated care, and I think it's also a robotics moment. I think this should be the moment where we all say, okay, we got to get some way to get more robots in the care of health, so that the fact that we're losing healthcare workers to illness, and I think the issue that I don't think people quite grasp is, so you're a healthcare worker and you are exposed to a patient with COVID. You are now basically out of the care chain for 3 weeks. And, we do not have infinite resources on people. We do not have infinite resources on caregivers. We need to figure out a way to supplement those caregivers. And I think it really does long-term say that, we're going to this will probably advance the robotic healthcare movement dramatically.
Yeah. So, Brian, what does the other side look like after this? And I don't know if there's a fully after this, but in your opinion, from a societal perspective, obviously an industry perspective, you've shared it with us, but what does that other side look like?
Well, it looks different. The other night I was, thinking about 9/11 and how we all went to bed on September 10th, 2001, and the world was one way. And then when we woke up, it was a different world, and we all had to realize that pretty quickly. I don't quite know what the other side looks like. I think probably for good, healthcare is gonna become top of mind moment issue for all of us, and I hope what we see on the other side is a true reverence for the healthcare workers who are risking their lives right now. Yeah. An understanding that too much of medicine is relied upon heroics, and people pushing themselves to the breaking point. We need better cooperation among our hospital systems, and we need our government to understand more acutely how this industry works, and less using us as a political football and a talking point to get elected. healthcare right now is our key infrastructure in this country. I think you can see that quite clearly. We need to make sure that it is understood and it is supported in the way that it needs to be. The whole world, literally, Joe, is standing still because of a new strain of basically, a new strain of a virus. And we're shut down from Boston to Beijing. It's incredible. I mean, this should be a moment where we all step back and say, "Oh, wow, how did we get here? What are the lessons? And how do we make sure that this doesn't happen again? Or if it does happen again, how do we stop it in its tracks?"
Yeah. Well, that's a great summarization of this. Listen, you're up in Boston. I know you have a lot of work to do today. And I also know you're on the front lines. Can we count on coming back to you, because this is such a fluidic situation, and you chime in from the front lines for us? Could I ask you to do that?
Of course, Joe. And I just want, to make sure that our members know. I mean, we're trying to make sure that they're up to date on all the information they need. So we're holding virtual town halls on a weekly basis where we're going to bring in experts to tell them, how is this impacting, your FDA submission? How is this impacting MDR? We're going to do, we're really doubling down on webinars and things like that. We're still running our MedTech Ignite program, albeit we're going to run it, virtually for a while. We're here as an information resource. We want to make sure that all of our members know that. And even if you're not a member, make sure to follow us on LinkedIn, and check out our website for information. We're all connected here, and we all just got to stay strong and stay connected.
Yeah,
But
I think
always happy
everybody's
to help.
I think everybody's a member today, my friend.
Well, I hope so.
Yeah.
And I hope everybody stays healthy and stay inside, please.
Yeah.
Or stay separate.
Well, listen, get to work. I will chat with you soon. Truly do appreciate this. This has been Joe Mullings for The Other Side.